please remain standing as I invite Councillor Nicole Young to bless us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we come to you in humility and faith. We thank you for all you have given us and the many blessings in our lives. We ask for your guidance and strength. Father, we pray to you, for this meeting and your purpose for it. We know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. We love you for that, Father. That even when we have done what you have asked, the results are so much greater than we could ever imagine. Even in failed attempts, you blow us away with your faithfulness to provide what we need. Our prayer to you today is that your will be done through this public meeting. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions in align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail or fall short. May all glory go up to you when we reach the finish line and climb over benchmarks. Blanket us with your peace today, Heavenly Father. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride and selfishness. Keep love at the forefront of all our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please have your seat. Political leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, who I know is making his way here very assiduously. Chairman of the party, Honorable Stuart Young. Member of Parliament for the constituency of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister. Deputy Political Leader, Senator the Honorable Rohan Sinanan. Members of Parliament, Senator the Honorable Alston West, His Worship the Mayor of Port of Spain, Alderman Chinua Allen, Member of Parliament for the constituency of Port of Spain South, and Minister in the Ministry of National Security, the Honorable Keith Scotland. Members of the Port of Spain City Council, members of the constituency executive, residents of Port of Spain, visitors from neighboring constituencies, members of the Youth League, members of the media, members of the listening public, those who are in Trinidad and who are listening far and wide. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Abina Hartley, Councillor and Deputy Mayor of the City of Port of Spain. Before we get into the serious business of tonight, I want to welcome you to the culture capital. I want to dare to say, actually, to the oldest, cutesy, and demure communities in the country because of its rich, diverse, and deep history. That is Belmont. At our core, the People's National Movement is the movement of the peoples of Trinidad and Tobago towards nationhood. As a political party, the People's National Movement carries this responsibility guided by our words of the national anthem. Here, every creed and race find an equal place. Our government is committed to facilitate national unity through effective and efficient administration and management of our national resources, as reflected in our budget. So what better place than here in Belmont? And what better time than here on a Friday night than now for the People's National Movement to continue their efforts to move people towards nationhood through education on financial policies, economic development, and really and truly all the things that relate to us in terms of our bread and butter. As you all know, Educating, empowering, and governing are some of the known pillars of this great party. And so here tonight is not a 2025 election gimmick. From the early years of our forefather, Dr. Eric Williams ensured that the party held meetings to engage and report to the masses. Dr. Williams created a tradition of hosting a public meeting after each budget presentation, during which time he broke down the economic jargon into simple man-on-the-street language. And here we are, 62 years later. Our political leader and prime minister is not just carrying on blind tradition, but upholding the respect for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, those to which he's in service to, by holding open discussions on our livelihood. So welcome, welcome, welcome to this year's post-budget meeting, steadfast and resolute, forging pathways to prosperity. But I have a clarion call. I have a clarion call, not just to you sitting here in front of me who, you have no choice but to pay attention, but to those who are on your couches, to maybe if you're by Pigot's Corner listening to us, or wherever you may be. On this Friday night, wherever you may be, I urge you to pay attention to your business. This budget is your business. These policies are your business. The new remedial CSEC mathematics program established under the Ministry of Education is your business if you have a son or daughter preparing to write CXC. Public sector workers who will benefit from the increase from $20.50 to $22.50. This is your business. This is your budget. Because really and truly, the additional money will be inputted into your family and into your homes. The groundbreaking gas deals, which I'm sure we're about to hear, and we're very excited, that has moved from negotiation stage to the signing of agreements, in the near future will translate into dollars and cents. Now, whose business is that? Our business. Because that revenue is the money that will fund ourselves, our families, and the wider development of our nation. So let me put it a little plain, because I'm probably talking a little fancy. You know the saying, drunk or sober? Mind your business. Let me hear you. Drunk or sober, mind your business. So as we get into the seriousness of tonight's conversation, I want you to combine fact and reason. And I want you to leave here with an understanding of how your life will be directly impacted, that of others, your communities, and our country at large. Now, our first speaker, I probably see him every day. His Worship the Mayor, Alderman Chinua Allen, is leading a young, innovative, action-oriented council here in the city. And tonight he will open tonight's proceedings. Please welcome His Worship the Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The protocols having been established, ladies and gentlemen, please still permit me to recognize our political leader and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. All of our party officers, the parliamentary representative for the constituency of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, Minister in the Ministry of Energy, Minister of Energy, my apologies, and Energy Affairs, and Manager in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Stuart Young, the parliamentary representative for the constituency of Port of Spain South, and Minister in the Ministry of National Security, the Honorable Keith Scotland. Other members of the government, my colleagues on the Council of the City of Port of Spain, and ladies and gentlemen, permit me to deviate from the protocol briefly and recognize a special lady in the audience tonight. Just want to recognize my mother who is present. Mommy, how you going? Everything all right? So as our chair said, we're here to deal with we business. We're here to talk about a PNM budget and a fine PNM budget, a fine display of PNM strength, a fine display of PNM intellectualism. And I know those on the other side, they were sitting down and they were complaining, all who was hungry, who wanted to go home after Minister Imbert gave me 5 hours of the very, very best that the PNM has to offer. And it's 5 hours of the best because we are committed here in the PNM, we are committed to reporting to the public about our stewardship. And as Minister Imbert gave a report, his 10th budget, it was incumbent upon him to give a comprehensive report about the status of the economy and about the work that our Prime Minister has been leading over the course of the last 2 parliamentary terms. But what does the budget mean for you? There are a lot of talk about some of the items in the budget, but I want to kind of bring the budget a little bit local. I'm the mayor of Port of Spain, I'm in local government. So what does the budget mean for us here in the capital city? Over the course of the last financial year, the city and the council, we focused very extensively on local economic development. And what does local economic development mean for us? It means for us in taking a whole of government approach to the work that we are doing. In taking that approach, it meant for us collaborating with the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, collaborating with Tourism Trinidad, and all of the other stakeholders in ensuring that all of the services were in place for the start of the cruise ship season for the last financial year. And this year, that work has already begun apace, and that work is actually being led on behalf of the council by our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bina Hartley. She is leading that work. And the outcome of that is that in this budget for fiscal 25, Councillor Hartley was successful in ensuring that we establish a new line item under our PSIP, the Port of Spain Tourism Development Program, almost $1 million that is going to be invested in tourism development right here at the local level in the capital city. But the tourism work is not just about our cruise ship visitors. We're taking a holistic approach to tourism development. So for the past year, we collaborated very closely with several of the stakeholders that are engaged in preparing some of the festivals that you see happening in the city. We work closely with the NCC on Carnival, with Pan Trimbago, on all of the activities that they've planned, with TUCO, with the Emancipation Support Committee, with the Hussey Association. We work on helping them develop their projects. Because for us, heritage tourism is an area of specific focus where we work with the stakeholders, not for government to do it all by themselves, all by ourselves, but we work with the stakeholders to help them develop their projects, help them develop their products, and so that we have more to offer to the international community so that we can encourage more tourism arrivals here in the capital city of Port of Spain. That is the work that we have been doing, some of the work on local economic development. And that work really has been supported by a significant amount of effort on fiscal reform. We've been working very closely with the administration of the city, taking a look at all of the different line items that we have, working with them in order to bring about reforms so that we can get more efficient and effective use of our resources and bring about more benefits to the burgesses of the city of Port of Spain. And that work over the course of the last financial year led to significant improvement in our internal operations, and it allowed us to be able to reduce our overtime expenditure, reduce our reliance on overtime, by almost 40% in 1 year. Almost 40%. Those funds being directed to delivering goods and services to the people of Port of Spain. For the upcoming financial year, we've been strategizing, as you know. All of government has been working on developing what we're going to do for the upcoming financial year. And we have some very specific areas of focus. We have a responsibility as the Council of the City of Port of Spain. We have a responsibility to ensure that we protect all of our heritage assets. If we take a look just across the way from here in Memorial Park, you see that large structure you see in the middle of the park, that cenotaph? That cenotaph was erected by the Council of the City of Port of Spain 100 years ago. It was erected 100 years ago by a previous council. And the last council did a lot of work in restoring that particular piece of our heritage. But there are several pieces of our country's heritage that are here in the city of Port of Spain. Just yesterday, with the help of the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, we attended a meeting with the ambassador of the government of Cuba. And we were able to begin our preliminary discussions, working towards eventually coming to some agreement where we can get the technical expertise that's needed in order for us to do more of that restoration work. And one of the areas that we're looking at specifically is the fountain that we all know and love in the middle of Woodford Square, in the middle of the birthplace of the PNM. We are looking at that space, that fountain that was erected by the council in 1866, erected by the council almost 160 years ago. We are going to put all of the resources in place to ensure that for the next 160 years, the people of Trinidad and Tobago have that piece of our history to continue to love, to continue to cherish, and to continue to hold it. That is the quality of the leadership that you're getting from your council here in the city of Port of Spain. And we are only able to do that work because of the budget that you just heard read by Minister Imbert. We're able to do that work in development of the city of Port of Spain. And as we continue that work, we are also making significant strides in making investment in our road infrastructure here in the city. We have been allocated a significant amount of resources under our development program for road restoration works. And I am going to recommend to the council, we have discussed briefly in caucus, that we invest an additional $1 million out of our recurrent expenditure on a pothole eradication program in the city of Port of Spain. Ensuring, ladies and gentlemen, ensuring that the monies that we are allocated, the resources that we are able to generate, that all of those monies go towards the benefit of the people of Port of Spain and of the wider public of Trinidad and Tobago. So folks, that is some of the work that you can expect to see coming out of your council here in the city of Port of Spain. We are able to do that work solely because of two things: the shrewd leadership of our political leader, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, who has led a cabinet that continues to work every day towards the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are also able to do it because of the prudent management of the economy under the hand of our Minister of Finance, the Honorable Colm Imbert. And you know, you're going to hear a little bit later in the meeting about some of the other things that support that effort. You see, the Minister of Energy is here. And the Minister of Energy has worked tirelessly. I can't imagine how much stamp he has in his passport. The amount of times he's flying all over the place, making sure to bring the resources here to us, making sure to bring the energy resources that we need that could support the budget that you heard read earlier this week. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all of you to this post-budget meeting here in Belmont tonight. You've heard from me some of the work that has been happening in the Council of the City of Port of Spain. You will hear from the Minister of Energy as well as the Minister in the Ministry of National Security, some of their work that is being supported by the budget, and you will hear from our Honorable Prime Minister and political leader. The PNM is the only political party that can bring for you this kind of education. We are the only political party that could cause people to come out on a Friday night to do exactly what the Deputy Mayor said in her introduction, to mind the business. We are here tonight to not only mind our business, but to mind the business of all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, only the way that the PNM can. And we will continue to do that. We will continue to work in defense of the people of this country, simply because great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and it shall prevail. Thank you very much.
His Worship the Mayor, let us give him another round of applause for setting the tone for a clear, frank, and sober meeting in which we'll be having tonight. So the tagline of tonight is, drunk or sober, mind your business. Good, so we're warm. We're moving along. It is my distinct honor, and with pride I stand here to introduce a man whose vision and dedication has continuously shaped the progress of the community of Port of Spain South. A steadfast advocate of justice, safety, and the empowerment of his community members. The minister is one with his community experiencing the saddening effects of loss of life at a high rate, and so that who feels it knows it. He has shown time and time again that leadership is not just about words, but about decisive action and unwavering support to the future of his constituency and nation building. He is also a great support to my fellow councillors of the City of Port of Spain who fall within the constituency of Port of Spain South. He has shown time and time again that he's not afraid to face a challenge. And so I want you to join me in welcoming to the podium the distinguished Member of Parliament for this constituency of Port of Spain South and the Minister in the Ministry of National Security, the Honorable Minister Keith Scotland, SC.
Honorable political leader, the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, party chairman, Mr. Stuart Young, senior counsel, senators, the Honorable Eunice Ibrahim Allison West, Haji Kazim Hussein and Rohan Sinanan, all members of council, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, matriarch of our party who is not looking at me because she thinks I will not call her, Ms. Joan Yoon Williams, always resplendent. Only the PNM can have someone like Joan Yoon Williams as the matriarch. I heard that the theme for tonight is drunk or sober, mind your business. But I have a theme I want you all to bear in mind from now until 2025, whenever. And the phrase I want you all to bear in mind is, when it's nice, you do it thrice. We did it twice already. We will do it thrice now. Two good terms deserves another. So just remember that. So from now on, because like they have a banker for the treasury, and every time you talk to them, they're talking elections, elections, elections. When it's nice, we will do it thrice. Remember that. The People's National Movement is not a party just about the desire for power. This is a party, the party that you are a member of, which places a priority on working with the people and engaging with the people of Trinidad and Tobago towards building a stable society. It's a party that believes in governance based on two pillars that they know nothing about. The first pillar is integrity, and the second pillar is sobriety. The People's National Movement and government always focuses on the people, and do not let them fool you. We focus on the people, not the people's pockets. And this government puts the interest of the people's first. And that is why we can boast of free education up to university for all, free health care, regardless of color, creed, gender, or race. And that is the legacy of a PNM government, and never let them tell you different. So I say to you here tonight that we are about providing a better life and a better society in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is what the 2025 fiscal package called the budget is about. And the People's National Movement understands that strength and stability can only be achieved by giving the people the resources that they need to succeed. It cannot be achieved in any other way by empowering the people to utilize and to achieve their full potential. And that is why the theme and the budgetary theme this year, and coming from the Minister of Finance, is steadfast and resolute, forging pathways to prosperity. Forging pathways to prosperity. And how do we intend to forge pathways to prosperity? The government has allocated upwards of $54 billion spread across the various ministries, tagged to programs that will enable you, the citizens, to forge a way to prosperity. The first program is the investment in infrastructure and transportation. The Minister of Works and Transport will tell you that once you invest in infrastructure, you create jobs. And jobs is a way of empowering people to earn. And in earning, you build prosperity. But we didn't stop there. I heard Honorable Minister Young say today that the budget was a mature, what is the word you use, and a responsible budget. When I heard it, I thought it was a balanced budget. Here's why. When the minimum wage was raised now by $2 from $20.50 to $22.50, you know what the government did? It considered, can the private sector bear such an increase at this time, now coming out of COVID, now catching themselves? But we understand that there are persons who still work on the minimum wage, and that the government is responsible for paying that wage. You know the philosophy behind the thinking? The government said, look here, we will raise the minimum wage for the government sector workers. We will not impose that on the private sector. They are still free to do that if they can afford it. What that means, people, is that this government is thinking things through and putting a lot of thought into it. So what you will have is government workers, and not just government workers, CPEP in particular, URP workers, MTS workers will now receive over $500, in some cases $800 more a month in their pockets, and the government will bear that burden because it is part of our philosophy that we in this government we will build a pathway for prosperity for all our people. The next program is job creation and economic diversification. Today in Parliament, they raised an issue as how much money was spent by the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy in traveling. But you know what I am told that it yielded in one instance? $17 billion more from a private enterprise. So do the math. A plane trip that may have cost $60,000, $70,000 yielded $17 billion. I would have liked to be a part of that scheme. Invest $70,000 and reap $17 billion. That is building a pathway to prosperity. And with the job creation and economic diversification, do not let them fool you, you know. This budget focuses on job creation and boosting the sectors outside oil and gas. We're investing in agriculture, technology, and tourism, and that will create jobs for our young people and reduce their independence or their dependence, on energy. We are not waiting for the oil to just balance off. And whilst that is being done, the Minister of Energy is forging alliances and ties with our neighbors, so much so that they they wrote to the US government to say, put them on a blacklist. All they didn't say was arrest them, because we are trying to make a better future for you and your family. The cost of living. We know that you are feeling the pinch, and that is why the government, in its wisdom, has raised the minimum wage so people can cope, can go to the groceries and bring home food for their families. That is a government that is forging a path to prosperity. Let me speak of a ministry that has given me a lot of sleepless nights, me and Minister Hines, but it is hopeful to produce results that will make all of us sleep better. In national security, we understand that crime is an issue. Belmont and Port of Spain South, guns don't shoot themselves, you know. Why can't we behave ourselves as we were taught to do? Belmont and Port of Spain South. I'm speaking to you as a neighboring MP and as an MP who faces the same issues in Port of Spain South. I want to tell you all something. Do not allow people to come and influence you all to do wrong. Run them. Do what is right. Create an environment that when we have a sports day, I can invite Shafford Court down to Mango Rose. Mango Rose could invite East Dry River. East Dry River could invite Sea-Lots. Sea-Lots could invite Sister Levi, who bring in her maxi, albeit late. Bring in her maxi to the March Pass, and when she doesn't win, she walk off. She take all her children and walk off. And calling me for an injunction. And when I tell her no, what kind of senior counsel is? The allocation of funds in the Ministry of National Security was $6.113 billion. That was not by chance. That was a direct investment in national security, because we recognize that national security is a ministry that requires investment. It requires resources. We are in the process of getting 2,000 new police vehicles. All I ask the police is to treat the vehicles as if it is theirs, so they could be fit for the purpose which it's bought. What that means, Belmont, is when you call from Norfolk Lane, the police station and the police, which is close by, will be able to reach you within 5 minutes, because we have a working vehicle. We want that to happen. We want it. We don't want the call, you know. We don't need the reason for the call. We want the people of Belmont, we want the people of Port of Spain North, Port of Spain South to behave themselves in a proper way. Apart from the allocation, there are some initiatives by this government that is worthy of mention. The one that comes to mind for us in Belmont, and I will want to invite you in March to the opening, is the Youth Development Center at Basilon Street. It's 80,000 square feet, not counting the boxing ring. We have now negotiated to get a shade house at the side, and the party chairman is here. Party chairman and Minister of Works, you could give me a pool. Do something for we now. We want a pool. If we get a pool, people, you know what we have? You know what we'll call it? We'll call it a sporting complex. Yes. My predecessor, she used to take something small and make it into the biggest thing, you know. We'll call it a sporting development complex, where we do multidisciplinary things, you understand? Yes, a multi-purpose facility in the heart of Port of Spain South. We will be teaching literacy, numeracy, and we want the numbers to be not digits like 4, 5, 6, and 7, you know. We want numbers that people will understand. They will be able to count from 1 to 100 with ease. That is the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service that was developed under the stewardship of our Honorable Prime Minister. And I think he deserves a round of applause for that ministry. Part and parcel of the development is the community linking with the police. That is something that is desirable. It is something that is encouraged, and we want the community, both of Belmont, both of Port of Spain North and South, to have the confidence and the faith to have a real relationship with the police. And that is why we are trying to increase the police youth clubs and the community policing in the area. We are trying to have more and more patrols, joint patrols, both mobile and foot patrols with the defense force and the police. What it means, people of Belmont, PNM family, and those listening in the media, is that this government is not burying its head relative to the challenges that we face. We recognize the challenges that we face, but we are up to the task. You are up to the task. And if we put our heads together, I feel that we can conquer the task ahead of us. We come from a lineage of a lady called Winifred Atwell. You all heard of her. We just named the auditorium in Queen's Hall after her. She left to Napuna and went first to England, then to the United States of America, first to the United States, then to England, and made her mark as a pianist, so much so that she reached Buckingham Palace. She comes from a long line, Lord Invader, Kitchener, the mighty Sparrow. We have the lineage and the blood in us that we ought to be able to be conquerors of the world. So when I close tonight, I want to say this to you. From now until whenever you hear a bell ring, when they approach you, you say to them, when it's nice, we do it thrice. Great is the PNM.
When it's nice, you do it thrice. Minister Scotland, thank you so much for leading by example and sticking to the ground. As you entered your new portfolio, you hit the ground running in Port of Spain. And we are so grateful and thankful, and we are seeing the work that you are doing because you understand what is needed to treat with crime and criminality. As this government seeks to implement police training and provide more resources, people in another place are unpatriotic, and providing vitriol and hate as ammunition to the criminal elements of our society. We reject that type of behavior. But as we move swiftly along, and before I introduce our next speaker, I want you to stop for a moment and to reflect on the things I am about to say in preparation for our next minister. How many times on a daily basis, perhaps weekly or even monthly, do you have to manage your household budget by either tweaking, adding, taking away, finding a buffer? Often? Often. Because you need to ensure that Keisha gets the textbooks that she needs for secondary school. Or you have a son by the name of Josiah who has sporting abilities, but you may not be able to afford to enroll him in a private sporting club, and so that you need access to ensure that he reaches his full potential. How many times we need to service the car and pay the insurance in the same month and Christmas coming? Or when you need to run away from work to take your grandmother to the doctor for her clinic date, but you don't have much time, and so that you need to go to the nearest clinic or health center. Sometimes we can cover all of our expenses, and sometimes we just can't. We have to delay the plans. And so the exercise that this PNM government is embarking on is familiar to all of us. We are no stranger to budgeting. So now I want you to consider managing a multi-billion-dollar budget and trying to find sources of income at a fast and sustainable rate to ensure that the limited funds serve the many more Keishas and the many more Josiahs and the many more grannies of this country. So really and truly, what it is that we really need to run the country? It's money, income, revenue. Now, this responsible government and master negotiators have led this country towards earning power of 17.6 billion, and that is just one stream of revenue in one sector, by ensuring that our natural assets under the ground that is owned by every single one of us sitting in this auditorium and every single Trinidad and Tobagonian when it comes to our natural resources. They are ensuring that companies who are interested in seeking to utilize our natural resources, that they pay the required and the necessary royalties towards us. I say to those in another place where, to me, the sun isn't rising, but it is actually setting every single day. Talk is cheap, but actions speak. And Minister Stuart Young has made the saying, "Put your money where your mouth is," a reality. The money you have worked tirelessly to give us access to will allow education to receive a significant portion of the budget, because academic opportunity and access for our children is important. Education costs money. National security, as we just heard, will be funded and equipped for the improvement of law enforcement to keep us safe in our communities. Income and revenue will ensure that the healthcare system receives high funding to allow us free access to healthcare in almost all areas of diagnostics. I want you to look at all of the modern hospitals that are being built around the country, if not in all major districts. And whatever location you may be, especially to our listening public, think up to yourself, if you have an emergency, there is a close health center or hospital to gain access to treat with the emergencies and our medical situations. Now, one of our greatest assets here in Trinidad and Tobago, funny enough, is hot sun and rain. And that makes agriculture a gold mine waiting to be tapped into at a macro scale. Our revenue is making agriculture a viable option for people who never thought that that could be a career. And so much so that it is now bringing 21st century skills and development for free, land ownership for free, and earning power by sowing, reaping, sale of goods, and a quick turnaround so that we can start back the process again. Isn't that a government working for you? Social protection and housing grants, services to the socially displaced. And I must put a plug, Minister, we're real happy for local government because now we can do the work of the people. Local government deals with the local, your everyday local needs, and so that money builds roads, money cleans drains, and it really and truly picks up garbage as well. So those are just a few areas. And without further ado, I am pleased to introduce the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Minister in the Ministry of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, Master Negotiator, Patriot, hard and humble servant to the people. Minister, please welcome all of us, should we welcome Minister Young to the podium.
Good night. A warm Belmont good night to the rest of them listening to us. Let me hear you from Belmont. Good night. Port of Spain South, the next time you blow that horn is me and you after. To our political leader who's on his way, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, political leader and Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago for 2 terms, soon to be a third. Let's give him a round of applause. To the first citizen of Port of Spain, Alderman Chinua Alain, the Mayor of the Port of Spain. To our Deputy Political Leader, Rohan Sinanan, Senator, the Honorable Rohan Sinanan, Minister of Works and Transport. To my cabinet colleagues, Senator Haji Kazim Hussain, Minister of Agriculture, Senator Alison West, Minister of Public Administration, to one of the newest or the newest member of cabinet, Minister Keith Scotland, also Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, and of course, no political meeting of the People's National Movement would be complete without our matriarch, Joan Yule Williams. Let's give her a special Belmont round of applause. So, the members of Council of the Port of Spain City Corporation, to the PNM family, and to everyone who is listening and looking on across, how could I forget, our Vice President of the Senate, Senator Eunice Ibrahim, who is also going to wrestle and wrangle Barataria Sawa back to the People's National Movement. Saddam don't know what coming for him, but it coming. PNM family, today the budget debate kicked off. On Monday, we had the 10th delivery of a national budget by the People's National Movement under the Minister of Finance, Minister Colum Imbert. And what we had on Monday, for just over 5 hours and 10 minutes, I describe, and I will continue to describe, as a responsible budget. And I give him and the government a round of applause for that. Because as you see, what I will tell the population tonight here from Belmont is there is a huge difference between a responsible government that puts country first and an irresponsible party that puts party first and pockets first. And one thing this PNM government will not do is put pockets first. But you see, to be a good government, you must also be confident and competent to ensure that you secure the future of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I will show you here tonight, without a shadow of a doubt and without fear of any contradiction, What this PNM government has delivered over the last 9 years is nothing short of remarkable, especially in the energy sector. And I want you all to give us a round of applause for that. What we witnessed today, on the other hand, from the leader of the opposition and from a woman who is aspiring to be Prime Minister once again, the leader of the opposition, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, was nothing short of frightening. We listened for 3.5+ hours, and there was not a single statement on how they will get revenue for Trinidad and Tobago. I want you all to think about something for a moment. The only way to run a country successfully is to ensure you have revenue. That means that you have money. As I sat there and I looked around this Belmont Community Center, you all would recall when I came in 2015, the community center was nothing like this. It was a small, outdated, dilapidated building on this plot of land, you remember? And I told myself coming into politics, I will not make promises, but I will give my best to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and give my best to the constituency of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. And this here today is one of the testimonies of that. But more importantly, what I want the people to understand tonight and what we must understand, because you see, energy sounds like this lofty conversation. When people are speaking about energy and oil and gas and negotiations and Atlantic restructuring, it sounds like it's out there. But that is where the revenue comes from. That is where the money that runs Trinidad and Tobago comes from. That is how we managed to build this community center. We managed to build one in Cascade. We have managed to build new community centers across Trinidad and Tobago. The money to do that comes from the energy sector. Just look out the window here. Look next door at that remarkable state-of-the-art building that is now the Ministry of Health headquarters. Energy money paid for that. The roads, fixing the traffic lights, our children going to school, the free education system that Dr. Eric Williams put in place. It is energy paying for that. So it is important that we, the citizens, understand the importance of this thing called oil and gas. The hospitals right there, you'll see it, a huge new modern central block going up in the Port of Spain General Hospital. Any one of us now could walk into the Port of Spain General Hospital and get first world treatment for anything that we have medically for free. That is paid for by the money earned from oil and gas. It is important that we understand this, because you see, there are many people out there who will not want you, the citizens, to understand the importance of every drop of oil and every molecule of gas. As you know, we have started the budget debate today, so I'd like to welcome some of the members who are making their way from Parliament. We have Minister Brian Manning. I just saw Minister Randall Mitchell. We have Minister Paula Gopi-Skoon joining us. Welcome, welcome to Belmont. So the importance of the energy sector is that it is tied into everything that earns revenue in Trinidad and Tobago. I have this debate with the Minister of Trade and Industry and the Minister of Finance all the time, because even when they talk about non-oil revenue, there are elements in there that are tied back to the gas that we sell. The gas powers all of our electricity. This is natural gas. We are one of the only countries in the world that our electricity is powered from natural gas. The manufacturing sector, when you hear the figures, there are components in there like ammonia, methanol, urea, UAN, that are direct products of that natural gas. I take the time to explain this to all of us so we could understand that our children going to school, the fact that they can go to university and get a free tertiary education, secondary school, that some of our education, all of our education, and some of our students are as best as any in the world. That comes from the revenue earned from oil and gas. Everything that we do here in Trinidad, the provision of electricity, is heavily subsidized. Today, the leader of the opposition, and I'm not in parliament, so I could use the language I want tonight. I ain't had nobody tell me I can't use that. The leader of the opposition told some of the most blatant lies to the population today. And let me tell you one of them that got me so upset as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. The leader of the opposition said that when the Prime Minister and myself went to Houston in 2010 to negotiate, and we have said we did not negotiate the prices there, that there were technocrats on the other end of the phone line from NGC negotiating with BP, but we were there to facilitate the conversation that had broken down. The leader of the opposition, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, self-appointed SC, MP, had the audacity to tell the country today, and this is a woman that wants to lead our country again. She said because of the high gas prices that Rowley and Young put on the country, electricity rates went up. Has anybody's electricity rate gone up for the last 9 years? The answer is no. But you see, that is a perfect example of how the UNC treats the population from the head go down. They think we all stupid and they think they could just lie to us and we will suck it up. But the time is coming, as I will talk to you all about tonight. The time is coming and we have serious choices to make. We have to decide who is going to continue to lead Trinidad and Tobago, who is worthy of leading Trinidad and Tobago, who is going to manage Trinidad and Tobago's affairs, including the energy sector. She didn't tell that lie once, you know. She went on later on in the 3-hour speech to say it again, to say the PNM government in the last 9 years has raised electricity, and now she adds on water rates as well. There has been no raising of electricity and water rates under this PNM government, right? So that is a lie. And when you hear these types of things being told from the head of a political party, from someone who wants to lead this country, it is a frightening thing. And I'm warning Trinidad and Tobago, you have to take note of these things. Also, in the budget response today, the leader of the opposition was adding borrowings to revenue. She came and said Minister Imbert had a $54 billion budget, counted how much was revenue, and then said that we're borrowing $16 billion, which should be added to revenue. How could you put somebody to lead the country that does not even understand simple accounting and financing? But I want to put something on the record here tonight in public, outside of parliamentary privilege, because this is important. I think everyone listening and everyone in this room, and by now everyone in Trinidad, understands the importance of this thing called the energy sector. That every drop of oil we sell and every molecule of natural gas earns money so you could run Trinidad and Tobago, so the children could get food when they go to school in the school feeding program. So when you go to the hospital or the clinic, you could get drugs. Just a few weeks ago, one of our energy companies, state-owned, donated equipment to the public healthcare system for the treatment of cancer, over $10 million of treatment, so people who have cancer can get treatment in our public healthcare center. There are not many countries in the world that citizens can get free cancer care. That is what a PNM government does for you. So if energy is so important to our livelihood, and energy is so important to how we earn money, and energy is so important as to how we cut the grass, how we could make sure we have drains, Minister Sinanan could pave the roads, Minister West could deal with the civil servants, Minister Mitchell could come to cabinet and say, listen, I want to attract more cruise ships. This is what we need to do in tourism in Tobago, paying for a brand new airport terminal to attract more airlift to Tobago, looking to build hotels in Tobago, selling one of our hotels in Tobago as part of diversification. All of that money comes from energy. Let me tell you what Ms. Kamala Prasad Bissessar did today in her response to the budget. She declared war on the energy chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want you all, the population, to understand the effects that can have. The leader of the opposition today said, if the UNC forms the next government, they have declared war on the energy chamber and they will set up their own body. So how are you going to set up a government body to deal with the energy sector outside of the energy chamber? You know who are the shareholders of the energy chamber? BP, Shell, EOG, Perenco, Woodside, NGC, Heritage, all of these companies, and you go and declare war on them? Well, Trinidad and Tobago, let that be a huge warning to us that if anyone takes God out of their minds, that is what the UNC intend to do if they form government. Today, the United National Congress declared war on the energy chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, and that is a massive red flag for our future. They like to talk about all the trips that Rowley and Young make. Why they gone to the Houston, why they gone to London, why they gone to the Hague, why they gone all over the world, and what those trips are about, etc. I want to tell you all what those trips are about. BP and Shell are two of the largest energy companies in the world. I don't know if we could comprehend that here in this room. Shell is the largest trader of liquefied natural gas, which is basically natural gas that you put in a liquefied form to transport, that runs a lot in the world, including all our electricity, manufacturing, etc. Shell is the largest trader of that in the world. BP is a huge oil and gas company in the world. If you have bad relations with those companies, they are not going to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. They could take decisions in their multi-billion US dollar investments to invest in another country very, very easily. It is all about relationships. It is all about who are the people making the decisions at these companies, because it's not the people around the savannah, you know. It is not the presidents of BP and Shell in Trinidad who make the decisions as to where money should be invested. They have to go and talk to the boardrooms in The Hague and in London. So to get onto the radar, to get into the headspace, to get into the conversation of the leaders of those companies, they have to believe you have credibility. They will take you in a room and they will twist you wrong so many times like a market crab tie-up, that if you don't have the competence and the confidence, you will walk out that room not even remembering your name. And that is what happened to this country from 2010 to 2015. You had ministers of energy who were just bedazzled. Oh, they're going to meet the head of BP. They're going to meet the head of Shell. They did nothing for us. We had in 2015, the head of BP come to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, myself, and say, as a result of what the UNC put in place as the energy policy, this country would not get any revenue or payment of tax from BP until 2024. We're in 2024 now. So work it out, from 2015 to 2024, the largest producer of natural gas in Trinidad, telling the country that you have no revenue to earn. How would we have lived? How would we have paid for everything that has been done? That is their way, the UNC way. But let me tell you all today, because you know, very often when we speak, and I could understand it, you may say, well, you need to say that. What I have here in front of me is a report dated the 3rd of August, 2024, reported by the Newsday. And this is a report that the Newsday picked up of podcasts where the head of BP and the head of Shell, the presidents of BP and Shell, were talking to their shareholders and investors around the world. Okay, I'm told we'll take a quick pause. We have the political leader, the Honorable Prime Minister, making his way up. So,
somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Somebody turn to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my
Please stand and put
soul.
your hands together as we welcome the
Somebody
political
touch
leader
me.
of the People's
Somebody
National
touch me.
Movement and the Prime
Somebody
Minister of the
touch
Confederate
my
Republic of
soul.
Trinidad and Tobago,
While I was praying,
Dr. the
turn
Honorable
to me,
Chief
Jesus.
Christopher Rowley.
Somebody touch my soul. Somebody touch me. Somebody touch me. Somebody touch my soul. Somebody turn to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my soul.
let's welcome our political leader and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And in his presence, I will say it, for his third term coming up. I was about to say, and the timing is excellent. So this is not coming from the government's mouth. This is not coming from Young's mouth, or Dr. Rowley's mouth, or Imbert's mouth, or Scotland's mouth. This is reported by one of our newspapers, the Newsday, on the 3rd of August, 2024. And understand the importance of what I'm about to report to you. Oil and gas giants Shell and BP, which operate in Trinidad and Tobago, have had strong second quarter 2024 results. On the 1st of August, Shell PLC released its second quarter results and second quarter interim dividend announcement for 2024, with Shell Chief Executive Officer Wael Sawan and CFO Sinead Gorman hosting an analysis webcast from London. The relevance of that name, this is the top dog, this is the one who runs Shell, Wael Sawan. That man is now on a first name basis with the Prime Minister and your Minister of Energy because of the hard work that we've done. That we can reach out and request meetings and have a meeting with Wael and his whole team to discuss the business of Trinidad and Tobago and listen to what he says. Shell said it had strengthened its leadership position in LNG with an agreement to acquire Pavilion Energy in Singapore, partner in the ADNOC Ruwais LNG project in Abu Dhabi, and taking final investment decision, FID, on the Manatee backfill project in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the head of Shell talking to the world about their most important investments in LNG in 2024 and talking about Trinidad and Tobago and a Manatee project that is as a direct result of the work done by this PNM government. This is the reality. This is the bread coming home. This is not old talk. Today I heard the opposition in the parliament after my contribution try to say that Laura and Manatee is UNC were behind Laura and Manatee. Completely untrue. They go on to say on July 9th, Shell said that Manatee will competitively grow its integrated gas business by building on development efforts in the East Coast Marine Area, ECMA, in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the country's most prolific gas-producing areas. The ECMA is currently home to Shell's largest gas-producing fields in the country, including Dolphin, Starfish, Bounty, and Endeavour. The Manatee gas field, it said, will provide backfill for the country's Atlantic LNG facility. Increasing its utilization at existing LNG plants is an important lever to maximize potential from Shell's existing assets. And then the lady who's actually in charge of all of the integrated gas for Shell across the world, Zoe, said, quote, "This project will help to meet the increasing demand for natural gas globally while also addressing the energy needs of our customers domestically in Trinidad and Tobago. The investment bolsters our world-leading LNG portfolio in line with our commitment to invest in competitive projects that deliver more value with less emissions, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, the significance of this is that once again, Trinidad and Tobago is featuring in the global energy conversations of the largest LNG trader in the world, Shell. And that is thanks to your PNM government that you put in place to manage your energy sector. Let's quickly go now to BP. So on the 30th of July, BP said, quote, in the second quarter, we generated strong operating cash flows, reduced net debt, increased the dividend, and extended our commitment to buybacks, unquote. Murray Archenclose, Chief Executive Officer. Murray Archenclose is the new Chief Executive Officer. And again, the Prime Minister and myself have met with Murray on several occasions. In fact, this year in March, I met with both Wael from Shell and Murray on one of those trips to Houston at Sarah Week. And they are the ones who reached out and said, we have to meet because Trinidad and Tobago is back on the global energy landscape. And this is what they said when they made their 2024 results in a video and hosted live question and answer. Archenclose in his video presentation outlined BP's investment and growth in Trinidad and Tobago. He said, and I quote for Trinidad and Tobago, this is the CEO, the president of BP, global BP, in London telling the world this, quote, in Trinidad, we have a long history and very strong relationships. Pause there. People, that is the head of BP talking about the relationships that this government has worked so hard, not only to redevelop, but to strengthen. And you now have the head of BP speaking to the world about those relationships. It's not Rowley and it's not Young, it's not the PNM government saying that. You have the heads of BP and Shell globally talking about Trinidad. And this is what he goes on to say. In Trinidad, we have a long history, very strong relationships. We are executing a range of actions to reshape the business for the future. We are accelerating growth enabled by the recent Atlantic LNG restructuring. We are making strong progress at SIP and Mento, major projects. He then goes on to say, quote, we have taken FID on coconut and we're doing the FID on ginger, the next investment expected to feed the domestic and LNG market. He goes on to say, and we have secured an exploration and production license for coquina, enabling a material potential development of the Manikin-Coquina cross-border gas resource. Together, this creates a higher value Trinidad gas business with clear line of sight to material high margin growth over the next several years, unquote. Let me break that down for you all. What you have there is BP telling the world that once again they're excited about their business in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the touch, feel, eat of all of the travel that has been done over the years. You are seeing the results here. Let me further tell you all, you see that coquina mannequin that he spoke about? That is a field of gas that is part in Venezuela, coquina, part in Trinidad, mannequin. You had the opposition saying in Parliament in May of this year, the deal done. It will not happen because the United States lifted the permission to do business with Venezuela in April of this year and put back sanctions. And they were screaming at the government with glee, you will not get coquina mannequin done. BP will pull out just in April of this year. But you know what your government did? You know what your Minister of Energy and the Prime Minister did on your behalf? By then, we had already begun the conversation with the United States. Before the license, the general license even expired, we had put in our application in April for a specific OFAC license like the one we got for Dragon. And you know when? It came through in May of this year. I immediately got on the planes to and from Caracas, Venezuela, and by the 24th of July of this year, successfully negotiated on behalf of all of you, all our children, and for the future of Trinidad and Tobago with Venezuela. On the 24th of July this year, we obtained a 20-year license for the gas in Coquina. Never been done before. Add that to the license we got in December of last year for Dragon, a 30-year license from Venezuela. So these are the things that have secured the future for Trinidad and Tobago. Let me tell you all, because I heard them talking again today and trying to say that the PNM don't know what it's doing. With just 2 companies, the negotiations and the discussions we had with them from that energy spotlight in 2018 to date, only 2 of these companies, we have earned $17.625 billion for the people of Trinidad and Tobago that would not have been earned if we didn't negotiate. And I want the population to remind itself, when we began that process, the former Minister Khan and the Prime Minister Dr. Rowley of the Energy Spotlight in April 2018. And we went and said to the energy companies, we want our fair share. You all remember what the naysayers said? All of them, you'll run the energy companies from Trinidad. They will never invest in Trinidad again. They will pull out of Trinidad. You remember that? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the real truth. This is what you could feel. This is what builds the community center, sends our children to school. This $17.6 billion that we achieved from 2 companies that we would not have gotten a red cent for if we did not have the confidence and the competence to negotiate on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the difference with a PNM government in place. And I am proud, humbled, and privileged not only to be the MP for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, but to have been given the task of leading the charge on these negotiations over the last few years, that I can now see and say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this competent and confident PNM government has been able to deliver to the people of Trinidad and Tobago literally billions of dollars that we would not have earned, and secured a future for the children of Trinidad and Tobago that will come in expedited and increased gas production from 2027. And that drives fear into our opponents. But this is where we have the responsibility, because I told you a short while ago, today the leader of the opposition and the UNC declared war on the energy chambers and the energy companies. I have just given you all in a few minutes live examples of how important this is to our future and our livelihood. We hold the power in this finger here to decide the fate of Trinidad and Tobago in the not too distant future. I have told you all in the short time that I have, because I could go on for hours if I was given the time, to tell you all the intricacies of having to go to Washington, meeting with the lawyers, meeting at the White House, meeting at the State Department, meetings. I remember one day with the Prime Minister on one of those trips, 7 speeches the Prime Minister gave to different people in one day in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I traveled numerous times, 8 trips, 9 trips to the United States and Washington, D.C., many of them on my own, quietly, competently, confidently, seeing why the United States had to help Trinidad and Tobago and give us these OFAC licenses. We now have it in our hand. They can't take that. The UNC can't take that away from Trinidad and Tobago. We have a 30-year license for Dragon, 20 years from Coquina. Manatee is FID'd, so it is coming, and that is not only what is taking place today in the Parliament. I spent a few minutes, all of the various domestic gas deals going on. We just broke another record a few weeks ago, negotiated, awarded a license for domestic block to shell, and completed the seismic in a matter of weeks. All of this is a PNM government doing the work for the people of Trinidad and Tobago and securing your future. And the time is coming soon. The time is coming soon for us, the citizens, to decide who can do it. So I am going to end tonight with an example, one example, because there are plenty, as to why it has to be us and not the other side. You all would have heard me say so many times that the only gas deal, the only deal that the UNC negotiated in 2010 to 2015, which has had detrimental effects to Trinidad and Tobago. All the low gas production we face now is because they didn't negotiate anything in that time. But I said they negotiated one deal, CGCL, one deal. And I have told you, the population, that one deal has cost us, the citizens, the taxpayers, our children, billions of dollars in losses. And now they like to turn it around. But and you went to Japan and you say you renegotiate the contract. So what you're talking about losses? Let me tell you all. And this document here tonight, this document is a letter from the National Gas Company dated February 24th, 2015. The leadership of NGC telling Senator the Honorable Larry Hawaii, Minister of Finance and the Economy, and Senator the Honorable Kevin Ramnarine, Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, NGC telling the two of them, the Minister of Finance Hawaii and the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Kevin Ramnarine, on the 24th of February 2015. You know what's the content of this letter? Do not do the CGCL deal. It is bad for NGC. I'll just read one part of it for you all. This is them warning the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Energy in February. The election was in September of that year. This is the only deal that they negotiated. Quote, an external legal opinion which was sought with respect to this matter revealed that NGC could potentially be in breach of all existing gas sales contracts if it implements a priority contemplated by the Greenfield Priority of Gas Supply policy. This is due to the fact that there are currently no provisions in such GSCs, gas sales contracts, which allow NGC to give a priority gas supply to any other entity or to curtail supply. If implemented, there is a potential for NGC to incur significant liabilities and costs. There was another issue they raised here out of many, something called the debt-tail buy-down agreement. We came into government in September 2015. The Honorable Prime Minister, even when he was leader of opposition before that, found it strange that people were trying to pressure him about this deal. That if we form the government, you have to sign off on this immediately. This was them being warned in February of that year. Don't do the deal because it is going to lead to claims for breach of gas sales contracts and something called the debt-tail buy-down. When we came in, the Prime Minister tasked me with looking at it. We found there was only one document left to be signed because the UNC was rushing all of the public service. They had signed every single legal document except an Attorney General opinion. And there's evidence on that file that exists at the Office of the Attorney General on the Friday of elections. The elections in 2015 was Monday, September 7th. So the Friday would have been 4th of September. The Attorney General being put under pressure and pressuring the public servants for him to sign this opinion. There is evidence on that file that on the Monday of elections, they continued to try and pressure the public servants to sign that AG's opinion. The public servants did something that I have never seen. Now in my 9th, almost 10th year in government, they put in red ink the reasons why the AG shouldn't sign that opinion. Fortunately, that gave Trinidad and Tobago this amount of wriggle room because all the other contracts had been signed. And when we came in and looked at it and we saw this greenfield gas policy, which was a UNC energy policy, immediately we knew it would expose the NGC and all of us in this room to billions of dollars in claims for breaching gas sales contracts. And that detailed buy-down agreement, let me tell you what it meant. That NGC was securing the whole deal and NGC was only I think a 20% or 10% shareholder of it, but they have to secure the whole thing. If it goes belly up, we, the taxpayers, have to pay for the whole thing. The other shareholders get to walk off. We don't even get the plant. And that is what I renegotiated on your behalves to get rid of this greenfield gas policy and that detailed buy-down agreement. And that is, thank God, a PNM government was put in place to give us the opportunity to fix that for Trinidad and Tobago. So I want to tell Wade Mark tonight, Kamla Prasad Bisesa tonight, Kevin Ramnarayan tonight, because now they like to say, I thought you renegotiated the contract in Japan, what happened? I will tell you, the people tonight, why we still have billions of losses against NGC. The only time we have had losses at NGC is as a direct result of this contract that they were warned in February 2015 not to enter into in black and white. And the warning was actually in bold. The reason why we continue to have those losses is because they agreed a gas price that was so low that we, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago now, are subsidizing the gas going into that plant. And that is why we continue to lose billions of dollars in that deal. So people, it is a simple decision that you have to make. We all have a choice to make. I have, in the short time I had tonight, told you how a PNM government has gone and reset for the future the energy sector of Trinidad and Tobago. I've explained to you how the money from the energy sector affects all of us and our children. I have told you, and nobody could deny it, that the benefits will really begin to kick in from first or second quarter 2027. And with one example and one letter, I hope I have shown you, the population, why those who aspire to office are unfit to lead this country whenever the bell is rung. I will end with this. You all would recall how the same leader of the opposition, the member for Oropuch East, Dr. Rudal Munilal, Wade Mark, Anil Roberts, all of them scream at us about the Dragon deal and about President Maduro, and they like to shout, Delcy, Delcy, Delcy. You all remember that? You all remember when the sanctions came in heavily in 2019 and we could no longer negotiate Dragon. You remember how they used to taunt us about President Guaido in Venezuela? You all remember when they wrote to the United States government because the Prime Minister and myself allowed the Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, to come to Trinidad during COVID to discuss with us matters of state, including COVID. You all remember what the UNC did? They wrote to the United States government. The same Munilal was proud to say, a right to the US, sanction Rowley, sanction Young. You all remember that? Every time we used to go into Parliament, they would taunt me about Delcy. They would taunt us about Maduro and Delcy. You all remember that? Well, let me ask you all and the population looking on and listening tonight this question. If that is how you treat the President of Venezuela and the Vice President of Venezuela, that is how you behave to them, because they have no President Guaido. Nobody do even know where Guaido is today. But we know that if we call Miraflores, you will get President Maduro. I know that I could call Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Let me ask you all this question. If anybody take God out of their mind and put the UNC to manage our country's affairs, you all think any of that gas I explained to you all tonight will come? And that is the question we have to ask ourselves. Who will manage our country and our economy going forward? Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all. And you know, we have to end in Belmont at this great meeting by saying, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Them say I'm a man, I'm telling you where I'm from. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. As I train it.
Minister Stuart Young has demonstrated that service for all is possible with poise, and he doesn't even look as though he breaks a sweat doing it. Thank you, Minister, for guiding us through national development over the last 9 years, and we thank you for a clear roadmap that you laid out tonight for us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are really into the meat of the matter tonight. We stand at a crossroads where decisions need to be made that will shape our future generations to come. A great nation like ours demands that its leaders abandon the politics of partisan division and instead embrace a spirit of collaboration and creativity, finding solutions that promote the good and common good for all citizens. It is this government's duty to level with you, the citizens, and to champion your interests and to navigate the challenges that we face. Over the last 9 years, we have faced calamities and we have been tested by the devastating health crisis, as well as the financial storms that have threatened our livelihoods. However, each time, our political leader and Prime Minister has risen to the occasion, demonstrating resilience and strength in the face of adversity. When we reflect on the essence of true leadership, we must consider moral principles, stewardship, service to others, personal responsibility, and shared sacrifice. These values emanate from the integrity of not just the individual, but of the collective vision of our nation. I reiterate, the People's National Movement is a movement of people towards nationhood. We are fortunate, though, to have a leader who embodies these principles. Our Prime Minister has shown steadfast commitment to injecting development into the lives of young people and paving the way for a brighter and more prosperous future. He has elevated the status of Trinidad and Tobago on the world map and has ensured that if there was no seat at the table, we were bringing the table and the chair. He has broken doors of exclusion that were closed to our small twin island. And now our diplomatic ties are even stronger, our negotiating power is strong, and our status internationally is one to be reckoned with. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand with me as we welcome the political leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable.
Remember the days of totes and water, anytime that you have to pay.
Thank you very much, Abina, for that introduction. For a moment, I thought I was just going to go straight back home. But, you know, she's getting the hang of it, right? By the next time, you see what's going to happen. She'll be an expert. Just say, come on the platform, and I come up. Thank you very much. Your Worship, the Mayor of the City of Port of Spain, my parliamentary colleague, and cabinet colleagues, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, Mr. Keith Scotland, who did an excellent one down today in the Parliament. And of course, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's East, Minister Stuart Young. who had the dubious task of responding to the opposition leader's effort. You know, many of you are still smarting and complaining about what happened in Guyana a couple of nights ago. I didn't see it, but I heard about it, what happened in the CPL. And it was so important, apparently, that it formed a significant part of the opposition leader's response in the budget presentation today. I nearly have to lift my jaw off the floor. The opposition leader found it fit to read something that was written for her in support of CPL. But after about 10 minutes, I realized we were CPL in the parliament too, which was complaint, promises, and lies. Because I couldn't figure out for the life of me if the leader of the opposition forgot how hard they work to undermine the building and the preparation of the Brian Lara Stadium, which is the heart of CPL. Today she was there reading out all the benefits to be had by CPL being played in Trinidad and Tobago, and one of the promises she made. Remember the night when you opened the Brian Lara Stadium? They came with a yellow peril in the highway, blocked the road. Some of you were coming down today and never reached. Those who reached inside from their camp went in and stuffed their jersey down in the toilet with orange and thing to flood the toilet. You remember that story? Today, in the budget response, the opposition leader was the biggest advocate in support of CPL cricket and all the wonderful things it will do for Trinidad and Tobago. And as a result of that, she promised that she will bring the finals back to Trinidad and Tobago where it belongs. Talk about foolishness. But I want to say something to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. A lot was said today on both sides. Be a responsible population. Understand both sides of this national coin, so that when you are required to make a decision as to who should handle the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, make your decision and be prepared to stand by it. If you want to put God out your thoughts and put them in government, all I would say to you, you make your bed, you lie down on it. Today I took a glance today across from the floor from us at the alternative cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. You know what I saw there? There were 6 people in the alcove supporting the opposition leader from the Senate. 5 of them have issues of conduct, one of whom is under criminal investigation by the police. I looked at the opposition leader sitting in her place, standing in her place, and who is around her? One on $1 million bail. He is the opposition chief whip. Others of interest to the police. Trafficker in the top. One who interfered with TSTT money, buy truck for TSTT that never will deliver $3 million, disappear. Listen, I got frightened, you know. To think that this is the cabinet in waiting, with a leader who saw it fit to complain about everything in this country. I want to ask you all here tonight in Trinidad and Tobago, has there been anything, and I mean anything, that has happened in this country which elicited from the opposition leader to say, I support that or I like that? Every single thing in this country. Today, she rambled angrily for 2 or 3 hours on everything in the country that was wrong. And I said, thank God the PNM took charge of the affairs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago because I don't know what was going on. Another big point that was made today, and a heavy weather made of it, including lies, and I'm not surprised if tomorrow in one of the newspapers, one of those lies or one of those dramatic statements is the headline and that's the story. Because in this country, we like foolishness. They will ignore all the facts and pick up some foolishness because let's start out looking for the headline or making statements to get the headline. We have no control over that. But our control is to tell you the facts, the undisputed, irrefutable facts. And you have to decide which one you want, whether you want the stupid talk or you want the facts. The other big point was Prime Minister travel and money allocated to the Prime Minister office. Let me explain to the people of Trinidad and Tobago the game that they're playing, thinking and hopefully failing to take advantage of what they think is your ignorance. Why does the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago travel on public business? They have the answer. They have the answer. Because you see, when I just came in as Prime Minister, I hardly traveled because there was so much to be attended to here in Trinidad and Tobago in 2015, 2016, that I was very careful and skimpy in traveling. But on the agenda of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, St. Vincent, Grenada, on the agenda, every year are two CARICOM meetings, an intersessional meeting and an annual meeting on the agenda, two. Those meetings are either 3 or 4 days, depending on where they are, each. Then, of course, there is the biannual meeting of the Commonwealth heads of government, where all the heads of a Commonwealth country will come, and that's on the agenda. Then there's the Summit of the Americas that come in sometime. Then there recently an annual meeting of the COP, which has had to do with climate change and so on. Then every single September, there's the UN meeting in New York. When I wasn't going to these meetings because I was focusing on laying the foundation for looking after your business, you know what is the argument in the parliament? The Prime Minister ain't going to the meetings. When I didn't go to the COP meeting in Paris, that was a whole speech in the parliament. Only last week, there was an editorial about me not going to New York to the General Assembly. Understand? But I choose where I go and where I don't go in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I had just come back from 2 weeks of medical examination. I am due to go to Samoa at the end of this month. So in between those two meetings, I sent the foreign minister to New York. Otherwise, I would have had to come here, turn around, go to New York, come back, turn around, go to Samoa. When I didn't go to the meeting in Guyana in the first energy conference, I was chastised by these people for not going, and they spread a lie of President Ali and myself at war. My closest friend in CARICOM is Irfan Ali. They spread that whole talk. The reason why I didn't go because Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana are not getting along. I didn't go because the gas exporting countries conference was in Qatar, and it was more important for me to go to Qatar and take a gas exporting position. And then since then, I've addressed the Guyana's conference at the invitation twice. I'm asking you all to ignore the UNC. Because all they're doing is making confusion, telling lies, and hoping that you mash up fig skin on election day and they fall in your lap. Because frankly speaking, they could not be serious. Prime Ministers travel. Let me tell you about one of the travels that I made that they mentioned today. But let me tell you the first one that wasn't mentioned today, because I know earlier brain is beyond all other things, so let's still smart in with the match that TKR lost. one of the first visits I had to make, which was not on the agenda, the calendar of Prime Minister. As Prime Minister, I had to go to Jamaica to prevent a boycott of Trinidad and Tobago's goods in Jamaica, because the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce was mobilizing to refuse to buy Trinidad and Tobago's products. You know what that means? That meant that our manufacturers couldn't employ anybody here to produce as they do, because the taker, or biggest taker of Trinidad and Tobago's product is Jamaica market. And the Prime Minister, who just came out of office, who's now the opposition leader, had so offended the Jamaicans with her loose talk and her stupid talk that generated a boycott in Jamaica. I went to Jamaica, and I had to sit down and talk to half of the Jamaican cabinet, calming them down, and then go after from that meeting to the Chamber of Commerce to have lunch with them and to tell them, well, Trinidad and Tobago has a new government, we'll do things differently, and we are still your brother. Fortunately, half of the cabinet were friends of mine because I studied in Mona in Jamaica, and they were my friends. I could talk to them, and I left Jamaica knowing that that was the end of that. That's where you all escaped from, a boycott in Jamaica as a result of the leader of the opposition, then Prime Minister, insulting Jamaica. You all forget that. That is one of the trips that I made that they're complaining about now. Another one of the trips that I made was Energy reporting to me that there are no gas contracts in place for the Point Lisas industries, and that negotiation for gas was taking place between our NGC, the supplier, and the main supplier of the raw gas. And those discussions had broken down, and NGC and BP were not now on negotiating terms. You all understand what that means? I had to then leave here because, as Mr. Young told you all earlier on, those major decisions are not taken in Trinidad by the foreign companies. They have local bosses, but the decisions to change things are taken at the head office. I had to leave here and took Mr. Young with me to Houston to do one thing. And that one thing was to ensure that the conversation between National Gas and BP resumed. We ended up going into the boardroom straight from the plane and had those discussions with the head of BP, who get on the phone, reopen the discussions with NGC, and in a matter of days, based on that reopening of discussions, they agreed on a gas price. Contracts, future contracts were now to move, and the other companies, because BP is the leader, on the very same day or the following day, we were able to meet EOG and to say to them that a gas price is imminent, so you can now feel that you can continue in Trinidad and Tobago. In front of us, EOG instructed their Trinidad people, proceed. $500 million of investment unlocked in front of us in Houston. Proceed in Trinidad and Tobago. So you people have no idea the brink that you are on. It's all well and good to talk, you know, God is a Trinity and everything going fine, and you could cuss the Prime Minister and you could want more of this. You have no idea of the brink that you came to. In 2016, as a result of the state of the country's finances, as a result of the state of the economy, we were not in a position to comfortably pay public servants. I was abroad, I think it was May of that month, on government business, when the Minister of Finance spoke to me on the phone, as he does when I'm out of the country, telling me that it appears as though, because of the nature of what is in the Treasury, we will not be able to pay salaries at the end of that month. And let me tell you all something. If you think that is a joke, go and ask our CARICOM colleagues. if any of them have ever got to a situation where at the end of the month you can't pay public servants. And what do you tell them? Simply tell them you can't pay. Vex, they could be vexed as what, but if you can't pay, you can't pay. And of course, go and ask Coach Charles, rest his soul, if you have a government check, as the UNC gave a government check to the Tobago House of Assembly, and when you go to the bank, the check is not honored, check bounce, can't pay teachers. Understand that? It was a check to the THA that was not honored in the bank in Tobago because the UNC made sure there wasn't enough money there to cover the check. But I tell you this, so that you will understand when you hear people talking about all you have to do is whistle and things will go right. All you have to do is shout or talk often or sound angry and things will go right. In today's editorial in The Guardian, there's an article called Little Progress in Diversifying Our Economy. Well, that's a subjective view. I have some money in the bank. I could think I'm rich. You might have 10 times more than I have, and you think you're poor, right? Little progress in diversifying our economy. Of course, we want to have a diversified economy. That's all our objectives. The Minister of Trade who is here, if she was speaking here tonight, it is quite likely she would have given you a whole treatise on what we have done, what progress we are making, how successful it has been in our effort to diversify. But of course, you get no thanks, you get no acknowledgement from people for the hard work or the success that you have. So in somebody's view, it is little progress. That was the first paragraph. But the last paragraph is interesting. It says, and I'll read it for you. The difficulty with all the planning, you hear it? The difficulty with all the planning and figuring is that over the 10-year period and 10 budgets since the government and Minister Imbert have been in office, Prime Minister Rowley himself has made it known that dependence will continue to be on the energy sector. Now let us pause and analyze that. Planning, good thing. Figuring, very good thing. 10 years in government, thank God. And of course, the Prime Minister, as he normally does, speaks the truth to the country that we have to be depending on our energy sector for the foreseeable future. Ladies and gentlemen, what exactly are they saying to us? That we shouldn't depend on the resource that we have? In the quest or the call for diversification, which is answered in the affirmative, yes, we should do that. But we cannot, should not, and must not ignore the energy sector. Because the simple truth is that the very diversification that they're calling for is not going to come in thin air. It has to be funded by the earnings from the energy sector as everything else is until. And we've made so much progress in recent times that our contribution to GDP from the non-energy sector is something that we are proud of. There was a time when that contribution from the energy sector was about 75% of GDP. Today, we are relying very heavily on our non-energy sector that is doing quite well. And in some people's view, it is little progress. In the view of this country, it is significant progress. But what is the problem with us ensuring that we pay attention and maximize our earnings from the energy sector alongside whatever else we're doing? Ladies and gentlemen, we are not the only country that is exploiting an energy sector. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirates, Russia. Russia is the largest country in the world, heavily dependent on an energy sector. You know why these countries are viewed as among the richest countries in the world? it is largely because they are exploiting hydrocarbons that are within their border or across their border, exploiting the energy sector. But this is the time when we are concerned about climate change. And it is said that climate difficulties are driven by consuming hydrocarbons. So we should all stop using it. You know who's saying that? Those who have caused the problem in the first place, saying to us that we should not. So that is the climate in which we are having to continue to operate. Our country can only say, sorry, but we are going to continue in the market as long as there's a market. And that is our policy. Because if Russia could be there, doing it 1,000,000 times more than us, if it could drive the economy of Saudi Arabia, making Saudi Aramco one of the richest companies in the world, if it could support UAE, it could support us, and it must support us, because without it, we are in great difficulty. And of course, Guyana is doing well now, growing faster than virtually any other country in the world, based on what? New finds of oil. Suriname has just found some gas and is looking to become a country that is experiencing growth based on hydrocarbons. So let's put this thing to bed. The PNM's government involvement and focusing on maximizing its earnings from the hydrocarbon sector, we make apologies to no one, home or abroad. That is our resource. It's our main revenue stream for the time being and for the distant future, and we will continue to rely on it as long as we can rely on it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a position today to say to you that we have crossed some serious difficulties, but we are not in a comfort zone that we could sit by. As a matter of fact, the policies that we have followed during this last few decades, largely under PNM leadership, is to have used the earnings of the hydrocarbon sector to develop the circumstances of individuals and the country in its physical state. Some say we have overdone it, and some say we could have saved more from that and be in a better position now, but hindsight is 2020. You could always say, well, if we didn't spend that, then we'd have it now, but when you were spending it, you loved it. In this country today, it would not surprise us if there are people who will say to us that you are living beyond your means. And you have to be careful once you get to that situation, meaning that you are spending more than you are earning. And if you have debt and you end up spending more than you're earning, then you're putting yourself in some kind of danger. Today, you would have heard under the headline of promises, the opposition leader make about 10 pages of promises, including bringing back CPL to Trinidad and Tobago as if that is a government thing. But not once did she apply a figure as to what it would cost to do any of those things. I will give you this, I will give you that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I will give you this, I'm going to do that. Not once in that 10 pages of promises did she have any indication to you as to what that would cost. And that is against a background where she has not pointed out one thing in the budget that says, you have this in the budget, funded by the money, don't fund that, put that money here or put it there. And I'll tell you, in the parliamentary rule, after we finish the talking session on Thursday of next week, there will be 5 days when we sit down and go through line by line in the budget. Never once will you hear one of them, man or woman, enough to say, take the money from A and put it by B. What they're saying, everything in there, spend that. We want more than that, and add what we are claiming. It's like the Minister of Finance spoke for 5 hours, giving you a comprehensive report on the government's record. That annoyed some people. He talked too much, he talked too long. And even as they're saying, he talked too much, he talked too long, it have others saying, he didn't talk about yachting, he didn't talk about dashing, he didn't talk about Okro, he didn't talk about Tobago. That would have been 25 hours. You cannot please them. And therefore you do just what is right, what is fair, what is sensible, and what is good for the country, and you stand by the actions that you have taken. Opposition leader comes this morning, hoping that the press heard her early before she fall out. Increase the minimum wage to $25, searching for a headline. Ladies and gentlemen, the vast majority of people who rely on minimum wage jobs are hired by people who may be struggling to pay them in the jobs that they have. They're either small business or struggling business and so on, snatch security and so on, where they work by the hour. If you increase the minimum wage too drastically, too suddenly, those who are to pay the employees who are earning minimum wage, they automatically move to two options. One, cut back on the hours that they work, or two, retrench some of the workers that they hire. So you have to be careful that you don't do the minimum wage in such a way that it brings about a retrenchment of people who are earning minimum wage. The first thing you want is for them to keep the job that they have. And secondly, if they're working 10 hours, you don't want the employer to put them on 8 hours because to save on 2 hours of payment. That's what a government has to do. But an opposition leader has nothing to do more than to talk stupidness and promise the moon, the sun, and the stars because she knows that that ain't going to happen. She would have no decision to make. None. When we came into, let me just give you a little history of minimum wage movement. 2003, minimum wage was $8 per hour. $8 per hour. In 2003, it was increased by $1. In 2005, increased by $1. 2010, so it took 5 years before it was moved again. 2010, it was increased by $3.50. It went to $12.50 per hour. 2015, $2.50 increased, went to $15 per hour. 2019, it was increased $2.50, it went to $17.50 per hour. 2024 increased by $3, went to $20.50, and now we increase it by a further $2 to $22.50. That is how you handle minimum wage. And of course, the government being careful not to trigger retrenchment and reduction in hours, the government said, okay, government workers, which are the bulk of the minimum hourly paid people that the government controls, the government will undertake to pay them the minimum and increased minimum wage, but leave the risk with the government and not put that risk in the marketplace. That is responsible government action. Because any employer who needs an employee and would let minimum wage payment interfere with that employee, that employer is not serious. Many of the employers are paying more than minimum wage anyway because they need to keep their workers and keep them satisfied. So the government has a role to play, but the government cannot be heavy-handed and pass it on to the employer who are employing people on the margin of minimum wage. Reckless statements in the parliament from somebody who you know them, They offering public government workers, what she offered today? 20% and some increases. Let me tell you all something, because I know you all like to forget. When that opposition leader was prime minister, and money was flowing then, because oil price and gas prices were higher, there was more money available to the government then. That prime minister offered public servants 5%, take it or leave it. Duke took it and went on a holiday in Germany. public servants ranting and raving, Yukon accepted the 5% from the UNC. Don't remember that? So it was all right for the UNC to have offered public servants 5% when money was flowing. But a struggling government now where you know the volume of gas gone down, the volume of oil gone down, the market price gone down, we're struggling to make ends meet. And we offer them 5%. Today, the opposition leaders spend hours talking about government undermining, rehashing and repeating stupid talk from elsewhere. Government undermining the collective bargaining arrangement, and the government is this and the government is that, because so how come when you offered it, when Duke was head of the PSA, all those things didn't apply? How come? And if we are in more difficult circumstances where the first objective is not to lose jobs, save jobs, and then increase earnings along the way and increase opportunities as well. On the way out after the 5%, a few days before they left office, election coming up on the 7th of September, out of the blue, of a public servant, 14%, walking away to go into the opposition. The government is contracted. When we came into office, we met an offer in place to public servants of 14%. The government's hands are tied. We had to go and borrow $6.5 billion to pay the back pay on that action. Is that your idea of good governance? Is that your idea of a government that cares about people of Trinidad and Tobago? What they were trying to do was to save themselves in office because election was upon them, and they believed that that sweetener would have caused public servants to vote for them. But the public servants were smarter than that. They voted them out of office. Because I could tell you, had they been put back into office and having to pay that $6.5 billion in a mismanaged economy, is straight to the IMF this country was going. And we saw what happens like that. A new government came in Barbados about the same time we came into office with a great victory. Wele. Within weeks, 3,000 public servants were sent home. That is how the Barbados government managed the situation, because they were going to the IMF. 3,000 public servants, the equivalent in Trinidad and Tobago, but it might have been 13,000. So I'm telling you all this so you could understand. If you skylark with these jokers who the police looking for and who have a lot to explain to you, right? That is where you could end up, you know, right? Imagine today the opposition leader has the unmitigated gall to accuse this PNM government of corruption. While she's sheltering a man on $1 million bail, another point she raised today, telling the government, as if we need her advice, that we must spend more money we must create and spend more money on the witness protection program. I got worried there, you know. Because where that come from? There's a member of her front bench, and there's a witness protection program into which this country pays upwards of $200 million. But there's a witness out of the country who is hiding from being killed in Trinidad and Tobago in a particular program where a minister of government was involved at the time, and that witness is of interest to them. So when she starts talking about witness protection program, it gets me very worried and very concerned. And talking as though we don't have a program. As Prime Minister, she must know, or ought to know, if she's not in any state of disarray, she must know what that program is, because she was chairman of the National Security Council. We pay a substantial amount of millions, and we have a lot of people in the witness protection program around the world. Why is this lady coming here and trying to make that issue in a budget debate and just throw it out like that? When one of her members want to get his hand on a witness that is outside on a particular matter. But I say no more about that. But that was part of the budget response today. Yeah? Not as we have 5 days of examination of line by line items coming up. But today, oh, I see the government put $400 million for buildings. What is the building about? And the Minister of Finance didn't say what the building is about. What craziness is that? You're not engaging policy. You're not engaging programs. The Minister of Finance put a global figure there, and here's her problem. $400 million for the Prime Minister. Let me just make all you understand something very clearly. The only money for the Prime Minister is the money that is paid into the bank as my salary. This woman has a problem with the minister appropriating $400 million for the office of the Prime Minister and spend a lot of time in the Parliament ranting and raving over it. Ladies and gentlemen, children, you know what that is? The Prime Minister has, as part of his portfolio, Minister for UDCOT. UDCOT reports to the Prime Minister. Remember that? So any allocation to UDCOT will come up in the budget as OPM, Office of the Prime Minister. You think any sane and sober opposition leader should come to the Parliament and be asking questions and telling the country that the Prime Minister take $400 million? You have, if I start to talk to you now about UDCOT's projects and programs, you have no idea how much work UDCOT has done, starting with finishing the Parliament. We're in the Parliament now. It was UDCOT that did that. 17 contracts we did there and saved $300 million in the process because they were doing it for $700 million. When we came in, we stopped that and went out, broke it into 17 parts and did it for $440 million. President House, we just had national awards in President House. When as Minister for UDCOT, I went into the old President House. We took out 7 truckloads of garbage from inside President House. Today, President House is available. Children in Queen's Hall couldn't go into the hall in the school because the hall was dangerous. We fixed that, we rebuilt that. And we rebuilt and renovated the Magnificent Seven. Today, the Prime Minister's office is in Whitehall. This compound here, across there where the Prime Minister's residence is, you all remember the tomfoolery that was spoken by the then Prime Minister when she just came into office and was living in Gopal House in Paget? That she was going to make the Prime Minister's residence a home for battered women. You all remember that? The Prime Minister's official residence was to be a home for battered women. Well, when you all elected me Prime Minister, I moved in there with my family, and it has been the respectable residence of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The adjoining building is the diplomatic center in which all the countries' diplomacy takes place and official functions and so on. All of that is managed under UDCOT, right? For 6 years, UDCOT has not been paid any money. You two joke about that place. There's a pool inside there. There was a man with a contract when we came in. We met a man with a contract to look after the pool. I think he was getting about $65,000 a month to look after the pool. We stopped that by simply asking for tenders. We got a price that was about 1/3 of that or less. But interestingly enough, we couldn't get water. We used to have truck-borne water supplied to the residents. One day, so I said, okay, you know what, since Wassa is not able to supply water, let's put a well down in the compound because I know there's water, groundwater in this area. When the price for the well came up, they wanted $410,000 to drill the well. I said, no, that's too much money. But why isn't Wassa able to provide water here? Calling Wassa. Wassa went by the valve of the road. You know, they closed the valve and concrete it, closed, and give a contract to somebody to bring water by truck. And there's a story that you need to know. The toilet inside the Prime Minister residence stinking up. Why is this thing working? Why is this thing not working properly? Bathroom area very stink. Calling Wassa. Wassa came and started to trace the sewer line. On the level between the two buildings, the line is blocked. The sewer line is blocked. So the sewer backs up all the way back up to the Wassa opened it to clear the blockage. You know what blocked up that toilet, that pipe? Ask the Wassa workers which compound they ever work on and clear a blockage that was a whole mass of female underwear. Ask the Wassa workers. That is what we have been putting up with in this country. And they love to come and talk as though they are the solutions to our problems. And so for 6 years, UDCOT has not been paid. UDCOT has been running up this bill. The Minister of Finance, at the end of this term, comes now and makes a provision to repay UDCOT for the 6 years of service of managing that whole compound, maintenance and everything, including kitchen and everything. She come and say, the Prime Minister have $50 million for entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you another story. You see, me, I eat 1 meal a day, whichever meal that is. If you could find anybody in this country who has been taking the Prime Minister to dinner or to lunch, let me know. I have, as part of my perk as Prime Minister, the ability to claim entertainment for money spent for entertainment and food and drink. I can't recall. It might have been probably once or twice in God knows how long. It's something I don't use. In my very first year, I might have used it with one person, one group, and we might have had a foreigner come in. But it's something I don't use. I do not make claims. Go and ask the PS. I do not make claims for entertainment because I don't use it. Because I don't go out to eat and drink because it's available. Did you see a couple of them tying their stomach because they get so big and fat? I don't have that problem. I'm a golfer. I sweat. I walk. What is the problem? I'm coming and talking about, but I tell you what, as a result of her nonsense today, I've asked UDCOT to give me the breakdown of what the Prime Minister's residence costs under me and what it costs under her. I should have that information by the time I speak in the budget debate. Because this ridiculous coming and talking stupidness and everybody picking it up as though, well, it has to, it is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And when our budget debate deteriorates into that, you know they have nothing to offer. But as Patrick Manning would say, they have to say something. They can't just come up, stand up in front of the mic and say nothing. They have to say something. Much of what they have said either make no sense or is straight outright lies meant to incense the population. So for the whole day, we have to be listening to that as a response to a budget that was well crafted, responsibly constructed, because what is a budget? A budget is really your estimate as to how you would spend money if you get it, how you will apportion it, where your priorities are, and how you will make do with what you have. It's not a number of what you want or who could give more than who. And tonight, I want to acknowledge the outstanding work done by the Minister of Finance for 9 years. The Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance in Trinidad and Tobago have been a responsible entity managing our affairs in a very difficult period. And when the Prime Minister says that the difficulty is not over, it is because I'm leveling with you. And apparently that seems to bother some people. I do not knowingly associate with crooks, and I do not set out to tell lies to people. I tell you what the situation is, and it's up to you to determine how you accept the circumstances. And you are better off knowing what the difficulties are so we can work it out and stay the course as the PNM has done for the last 9 years. I will tell you, when I was opposition leader, I had a government in office opposed to me for 5 years. I filed and prosecuted 2 motions of no confidence in the government of that day. I have now been in office, is now into my 10th year, with all the complaint, with all the lies, with all the truckloads of negative, with all the hellhole the country is, with all the bad, the government bad, with all the, they have never dared one day to file a vote of no confidence in the government of the People's National Movement. Never once. Going into 10 years in office, and the government so bad, things so bad, the country so bad, and you could not file a vote of no confidence once in that government. If you want a yardstick of what the reality is, and that your government is doing the best it can in a difficult situation, that is the best measure, because they couldn't get up in the parliament and file a vote of no confidence. Understand? 10 years. That is the record. But of course, having said that, don't be surprised if they go and file one tomorrow. But we would love to debate it. We would love to debate it, because we can stand on our record. We can stand on our record of doing the best for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. They talk about diversification. What are we doing about that? Expanding our non-oil sector. The Minister of Trade will tell you, and anybody who knows will tell you, because the government has already told you, but they're hoping that you forget. We have just opened now in Phoenix Park, one of the most modern industrial parks in the region, pushing the non-oil sector. They want to talk about trips. One of the trips I made to Chile, at the invitation of President Michelle Bachelet, I went to Chile on a state visit. And as a result, arising out of that, Chile and Trinidad and Tobago started to become closer and to talk about increased trade. Only last week, after the hard work done by Minister Gopi Skuna and her team in the Ministry of Trade, we have signed off, Cabinet approved a list of a large number of items which we now have partial scope agreement to go into the Chilean market, opening markets for manufacturers that weren't there before, arising out of a visit by the Prime Minister to Chile. That's what Prime Minister travel do. They want to talk about Prime Minister's travel. I traveled to Australia at the invitation of the Australian government. And when I got there, every single day was a working day. And when I came back, we settled the arrangements by which we will purchase 2 ferries, the Buko Reef and the APT James, to solve the problem of transport between Trinidad and Tobago with Australian money supported by the Australian government. We also were the first country to have access funding in Australia to buy military equipment of the nature of CG-41 and CG-42, 2 offshore patrol vessels, which we now have in our fleet. They are on maintenance and should go back into service in the next few days. That's what Prime Ministerial travel has done for you. When we tell them that we did not break a single contract in the energy sector, but we talked respectfully forcefully and effectively to those who own those contracts. And as a result of that, we put new arrangements in place with the agreement of the oil companies. And as a result of that, in the last few years, an additional $17 billion, which you were not going to have, you got. And that is what kept us to be able to run the country in the way it was being run as before, because we are now getting a little bit more money from less product, and we should be grateful for that. But I want to ask you all, had we not done that, and $17 billion was not available to the Minister of Finance, what would have been the situation in Trinidad and Tobago? Let me just tell you something here. Every budget for the last 10 years, I'm just taking the last 10 years, 2010 to 2024, that's 14 years. 14 years. Every time there's a budget, in that budget, it involves the government borrowing money to add to the revenues to sustain the level of expenditure. I want you as a population to listen very carefully. Because when people come telling you, you should do this, you should do that, you can give this, it is not in a vacuum. It's against the background of your ability to pay for it, or to carry debt for it, or to keep yourself away from falling into a situation where you get into default on monies you borrow. 2010, I don't have that figure, but 2011, the government, in addition, and this is in addition to the earned revenue, this is the borrowing, $3 billion. 2012, $15.7 billion. Who was in government then? 2012, $15.7 billion. That was what we borrow to add to the revenues. 2013, $1.2 billion. 2014, $5 billion. 2015, $6.2 billion. 2016, $11 billion. Because when we came in 2015, September, by the following January morning, with the collapse of the oil price, if we were to maintain the expenditure on the public servicing of the country, we had to borrow. You heard them talking about the wonderful economy they left and how things were nice in their day. We came in September 2015. On the 9th of September, I was sworn in. By the time I turn around with a few weeks, I just told you a while ago, we almost couldn't pay public servants. So in 2016, right, we had to borrow $11 billion, right? Of which 6.5 of that was the back pay that they incurred on the way out. The following year, $6.1 billion, 2017. 2018, we now have been in government for 3 years. We reduced the borrowing to $1.9 billion. You get my drift? The following year, 2019, that was when there was a collapse in oil price, and on one day, it went down to some ridiculous figure. Oil price collapsing and gas price collapsing with it. But we wanted to keep the country on that even keel on what we thought was temporary, because these things go up and down. They oscillate up and down. We had to borrow $6.6 billion. So up to that point, that is middling. 2020, COVID, country shut down. We have to keep you, pay you in job that you're not working for the government, give you money, send food to houses to keep starvation from the door, because the country's economy had been shut down because of COVID. We borrowed $16.5 billion, of which almost $4 billion of that was given straight to the business sector to pay them for money the government owed in VAT. And of course, we supported the private sector to keep the workforce waiting, anticipating the day when we'll be able to go back out to work, that there'll be a job there waiting on you. That's how we saved the private sector. And the following year, 2021, 8.2 billion. 2022, 2.2 billion. 2023, 7.5. 2024, 4.1. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes responsible governance to manage a country like ours, which has incurred debt in this way. Because the incurring of the debt is one thing, but the real issue about debt is your ability to repay. And that is why in 2016, what I as Prime Minister focused on from day one was the appointment in the office of the Prime Minister of a highly competent minister who had strong legal background and experience. And if you recall, I did not give that minister another portfolio. He had minister in the office of the Prime Minister and minister in the office of the Attorney General. That was not by accident. It was because I saw what the Prime Minister and the government had to do. So there are horses for courses. There were many of you here in Port-au-Prince North were grumbling that I didn't appoint your MP to his own ministry. Well, nobody owns any ministry in my government. You're part of a team, and he's a team player. And when he was appointed, he mentioned earlier on that people had come to me, strangely enough, surprisingly, people who wouldn't even look into Balize House when they pass in because they're afraid people see them and think there is PNM, came to my office in Balize House to tell me that this thing he mentioned tonight about greenfield, let me explain to you all what that is. They came to me to tell me that the new policy that the government has approved is a greenfield policy. And they came to ensure that I will not, if I become Prime Minister, interfere with this greenfield policy. You know what the greenfield policy is? That a new company coming in requiring gas must get whatever gas is available as priority over those companies that were already in Point Lisas. Let me repeat that. The UNC policy that they put in place, which they came to me with, a new company will have priority on the gas that is available. And the older plants, according to them, are less efficient, and therefore they shouldn't get the gas. The new plant, which is going to be more efficient, should get the gas. And that is now the country's policy. So my question was, after you build a new plant and you get the gas, when somebody else comes to build another plant because your plant is now the old plant, will you accept that? And as a result of that, giving that arrangement to them, all the older plants now have a claim against NGC. You all understand what I'm telling you about? This gas business, like the oil business, is a billion-dollar business. And you don't want to find yourself with anybody making claims against you. Because the smallest claim is how many billions? I want to ask the Minister of Energy tonight, what was the claim against the NGC that we had to settle? $8.8 billion of claims against the NGC that the NGC was now liable for as a result of that introduced greenfield policy. Anytime you see anybody from the UNC or you hear anybody from the NGC, the UNC, ask them, what manner of madness was that? And ask them if they know how the people of Trinidad and Tobago got out of those claims. The first thing I had to do was to send Minister Young to Japan to tell the Japanese government that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has problems with that contract. And if we don't get some ease in some of the clauses, that the government may have to default on that contract because we will not be so exploited. That's the first assignment abroad he had to do. And he went to Japan, spoke to the Japanese government. Mitsubishi was the major partner in it. And we told the Japanese government that we are not prepared to go down that road. We got a significant reduction in terms. So if you think that was bad, what about the $8.8 billion? We took years to negotiate that away. And the last time I checked, which was not too long ago, we were still talking about a $500 million of it, and I think we have negotiated, we have completed that discussion. We have negotiated away. You all know what 8.8 billion is? $8,800 million just as a penalty claim against you that you can't escape from because you are now in breach. And if those Point Lisa's companies were not satisfied and they decided to retaliate against the government, what would have been the situation? And if by the discussions that we have had over the years with BP and Shell did not bring us $17 billion, which have managed to keep you in the job that you have if you are a public servant, or to pay for the medicine in the hospital, or to provide the $5 billion a year to those who are on government support, what would have happened? The only thing that could have happened then is that the government itself would have had to make significant cuts in expenditure, or the government could have gone to the IMF, and then the IMF would have tell you exactly what to do. We managed it. One of the ways of managing it was to reduce the subsidy on the fuel, because in this country, we were paying up to $7 billion a year in fuel subsidy. We reduced it. It's now about just over 1 to 1.5 billion. So when they say the fuel subsidy gone, it ain't gone, all still there. 1.5 billion, but it could have been $6 or $7 billion worth. As a result of that, the money that we would have wasted in a fuel subsidy have been used more productively in other areas of the country to ensure that everybody gets a chance to survive. We have not fired a single gazetted public servant. But had we not got that $17 billion in that period of greatest difficulty, you think all public servants' job was secure? And all the support that the government gives to the rest of the country, in this country, water is subsidized, electricity, fuel, housing, all of these are subsidies. Education, health. Oh, they see $400 million for the Prime Minister. What is that for? And the Prime Minister, you know one of the things that the Prime Minister's office is doing under UDCOT is building a new hospital block in the Port of Spain Hospital. The tower is under construction. 540 beds. It has to be paid for. The money is located somewhere in the government. That money is in UDCOT. The Prime Minister is Prime Minister responsible for UDCOT. All the talk this morning, they were very careful not to mention any of our development work that create employment and put the country in a better position. It was UDCOT that organized and got the new Ministry of Health building built on a bolt arrangement. Today, there's a brand new Ministry of Health there in Queen's Park East. We no longer have to rent, paying almost $1 million a month. We pay in installments, and after 15 years, that building is owned by the government for $1. We had to build that hospital tower because the old tower that had 400 beds was condemned in 2009. So we had our patients in a building that was engineeringly unsound, condemned by the engineers. This PNM government put the people first, and we spent the money building you a new hospital, and that is underway. But today, they were careful not to say anything about that. But don't be surprised if tomorrow they end up asking some stupid question about it. In Tobago, we have a Tobago airport terminal building being built in Tobago. They wouldn't ask for that because they make enough scandal over that, or they try to. But the building is proceeding apace, and one of these days you'll go to Tobago and meet one of the finest airport terminal buildings in the region in Tobago, built by the People's National Movement. We are positioning Tobago to play a greater role in the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. We said that we are putting the Boko Estate out, request for proposals to see if any investor interested in coming to this country, going to the island of Tobago and investing in a project on a beautiful piece of land for a hotel. I see one of our friends in the media say the government said they're going to build a hotel in next year in Buku. Don't let people make fools out of you. We said a request for proposal is putting it out there and seeing who would respond. And until someone responds and responds favorably, we have nothing, because what we had, they killed. So, you know, they operate on the basis that our population is stupid. So when the opposition leader comes there today and come talking about corruption, dog eat your shame. You forgot that it was our government that had to go around the world and argue in courthouse to bring back $971 million that you all gave to a contractor to go away the day you all were leaving office. They took out the clause in the contract so that OS could leave with the bonds. We had to go and argue in the court. And I keep telling this country, we aren't safe yet because they're still trying to arbitrate it. The court gave it to us and said, use the money on the road. We did that. Today there's a highway going to Point 14 from San Fernando that is open and being used. And in the face of that, you have this bold-faced woman coming to Parliament and come talking about corruption in the government. We redid the contract on the Cape overpass, built it for $219 million, canceling the $540 million contract they were fighting over there. And she likes to personalize attacks. Rowley and Young, Rowley and Young, Rowley and Young. She slandered me no end. And my friend Nazim Bash from AV Drilling. Remember the whole election campaign 2020 was fake oil? Well, the same field that couldn't produce oil because Bash was thieving oil and recycling it to Petrotrim is now producing, what, 1,400 barrels a day on the same field. And Petrotrim, with the foolishness, was facing almost $1 billion in claims from Bash when the matter was finally settled. Luckily, Bash chose to go back to the field and not just claim the cash. She in the courthouse to answer for slander against Mr. Bash. I didn't bother to sue her because I don't want any dirty money. Ladies and gentlemen, you know who you have. You know what the alternative is. I just want you to take responsibility for steering this country through a very difficult period. And you do that by putting your support with the People's National Movement. She made a big fuss about some figure about entertainment at the Prime Minister's residence. I have made it a habit in that the center on national holidays, Eid, Diwali, Baptist Liberation, Christmas, we host a function and it's paid for by the state, and sometimes in Tobago. Because as Prime Minister, I'm very frugal, but I do entertain the public in public spaces from time to time. Make no apologies for it. The one thing I will tell you all though, there's nobody who could truthfully say that in my going into my 10th year, that I have ever stolen any money from the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the legacy that I'm particularly proud of. So if you want something else, you know where to get it. If you want something more, you know where to get it. If you want your country to survive and to prosper, you know who in the politics want that. When people could be celebrating that Nikwan blow up, and could be celebrating that Maduro could be the Jagan deal dead, when they could be celebrating that, I just want to warn you all, in the absence of a stream of gas coming from those projects that we have on the border and across the border, this country will not be able to afford its bills. And if we can't afford the bills, there's only one thing to happen. Who have more corn will feed more fowl, and who have no teeth will gnash their gums. That's what they're offering. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the PNM. We have the PNM. We took this country in 1962. In fact, in 1956, we took responsibility for it. Took it to independence in 1962, to Republican status in 1976. And now we are required to take it over the hurdles of the 21st century. Only the PNM has a commitment to Trinidad and Tobago in that way. So when you hear them talking about PNM, jealousy. Today they come into parliament, then PNM mean this, PNM mean that, PNM mean that. You heard that? Some nonsense somebody wrote for her. But what does UNC mean? First word wrong, United. 5 of them didn't show up this morning to hear her. They're so united, 5 of them didn't show up. And they're operating on autopilot over there. And of course, United National Congress, under no circumstances. So ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing for the election. We are screening our candidates. You will be called and you will answer loudly. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Whoever said that Trinidad is not a real place doesn't live in a real world. Because tonight alone we witnessed real leaders dealing with real issues to benefit real people. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a beautiful audience. Members of the listening public, those who are viewing live, thank you. I hope that you leave here feeling empowered, educated, and you will speak with authority on your nation's financial standing. I end tonight by saying, one love, one people, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall always prevail. Thank you and good night.